Hello, hello. Hi, gang. Hello, gang. So, the Monday poll question at Smerconish.com is this: if a state judge helps a migrant evade federal ICE agents, should that judge be arrested and charged with obstruction and concealment? Very deliberately worded. Thank you, my friend Ellie Honig, who will be on today's radio program. I went back and forth with Ellie yesterday, wanting to get the language ever so precise. Thank you as well to my friends at Parks Casino and Play Gun Lake. Detroit baseball is back, plus Pro Hoops playoffs continue for Detroit on Thursday night. Game 5, they've got a must-win situation against New York. Live bet on games while you watch with the completely redesigned and ultra-sleek Play Gun Lake online casino and sportsbook app. Whether Detroit wins or not, there's always another way to win on the Play Gun Lake sportsbook and online casino app. These new hot online slots have been added: the Big Easy, Panda Queen, Rakin' Bacon, Odyssey, Medusa's Golden Gaze. I love the names. Space Invaders Roulette. They're always adding new games at Play Gun Lake. The only app that I ever use and recommend. You can play blackjack, roulette, poker, craps, hot online slots like Cash Eruption, 88 Fortunes, Cleopatra. They got it all going on. That's the bottom line. New users get up to $1,000 casino bonus back if you're down in the first 24 hours. That's got to be wagered. Go to playgunlake.com, download the app right now, have some fun, enjoy all the action and excitement all summer long, whatever you might be doing, you Michiganders. You've got to be 21 and in Michigan for the Play Gun Lake online casino and sportsbook app. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. I've got to run through some poll results before I talk about the Monday poll question at smerconish.com. Let me begin with Friday. It seems like ages ago, and yet if you saw that footage of President Trump and President Zelensky in the Vatican, knee to knee, in sort of the preamble, or was it immediately after the Pope's funeral? In any event, Friday poll question: is achieving peace worth the cost if it means officially ceding Crimea and other Ukraine territory to Russia? 34,680 and 81.17% said no. Peace is not worth it if it means ceding Crimea and other Ukraine territory. I don't know how else we get to peace. I mean, I know it's the worst possible outcome, except for all the others. What's the alternative? Hang in, keep funding, keep sending our armaments? To what end? Saturday poll result: 60,267. Are Hitler comparisons to modern politicians ever appropriate? I must say I was surprised by this, and it does not at all match anecdotally the reaction that I heard all weekend long. 68% and change said yes. Now, I deliberately didn't put Donald Trump's name in that poll question because I wanted to ask it in the abstract. Are Hitler comparisons to modern politicians ever appropriate? It's not just Trump. It can be, I mean, as I went through on CNN, W was subject to the Hitler comparisons. So true was Ronald Reagan. I mean, even Bill Clinton and Obama were. And you know my premise, and I'll speak more about this on radio today. When everybody is Hitler or Nazi-like, then we have totally diminished the true occurrence of the Holocaust. There was a quote that I used in my CNN commentary that I really like, and I happen to have handy. Jonathan Tobin, writing for the Jewish News Syndicate. The way the discussion about the president always seems to circle back to Germany in the 30s and the 40s is a glaring sign that efforts to educate Americans about the Holocaust have utterly failed. Those comparing Trump to Hitler aren't just guilty of hyperpartisanship and bad history. They're essentially reducing the worst crime in the history of humanity to just another bitter political dispute that has nothing to do with the Nazis' totalitarianism and mass murder. But nearly 70% disagreed with me. As I say, that doesn't match what I heard anecdotally all weekend long. To the contrary, I heard from so many people who said, thank you for what you said in your CNN commentary. Yesterday, should the next pope be a reformer or traditionalist? 87% said reformer of a approximately 30,000, 29,000 and change who voted on that poll question. All right. Relative to today's Monday poll question, it's about the Wisconsin judge who was arrested last Friday. Huge news story. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel has the coverage that I published in the newsletter, which began this way. Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Hannah Dugan was charged on April 25th with 2 felonies on allegations of trying to help an undocumented immigrant avoid arrest after he appeared in her courtroom. According to a 13-page complaint, Dugan, who is 65, is accused of obstructing a U.S. agency and concealing an individual to prevent an arrest. The 2 charges carry a maximum penalty of 6 years in prison and a $350,000 fine, but sentences in cases involving nonviolent offenses typically are much shorter. Specifically, the complaint says that Dugan assisted Eduardo Flores Ruiz, an undocumented Mexican immigrant, avoid being arrested by federal immigration officials at the Milwaukee County Courthouse after he appeared in her courtroom from a pretrial conference. He is facing 3 misdemeanor battery counts. 2 federal agents eventually chased and caught him. I pulled the 13-page criminal complaint. Okay, so I have the criminal complaint in my hands, and it reads, as they often do, a bit disjointed, and the identities of some of the players in this drama are obscured. You know, they're not identified by name specifically. So this may sound a little bit cumbersome, but I just want to read and explain what went on here from the perspective of the prosecutors. It's a really interesting case. And by the way, I'm going to tell you, I don't know how I feel about the judge. Well, I do know how I feel. I don't want this judge to be locked up as a result of this. But if the averments, if the allegations in this complaint are true, she really crossed the line. She really crossed the line. And essentially, you know how we all talk recently about the denial of due process and Abrego Garcia, the guy who was sent to an El Salvador prison, the Venezuelan, and didn't have due process. I mean, in this case, my view is Judge Dugan is the one who destroyed any notion of due process. She essentially gave this guy, Flores Ruiz, wanted for domestic battery. She gave him a side door exit to get out of her courtroom, notwithstanding that it's a public setting. And ICE were there, as they often are, because if they know someone who is in their sights has a court hearing, it's a public place, it's a public courthouse, and they take advantage of that. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the case. I'll find this, or I'll ask TC if she can find this. It reminds me of there've been many of them, but it reminds me of a case that I know I talked about a couple of years ago, where there were dads who were in the arrears on their child support. And I'm just spitballing here, but law enforcement sent out these like prize notifications, and all these guys showed up. And when they showed up in this public setting to claim their prize was actually to be arrested because they owed for child support. Here's the way that it begins. I, Lindsay Schlomer, first being duly sworn, hereby depose and state that this is the affidavit in support of the criminal complaint. It's told from the perspective of a special agent of the FBI who happens to also be a CPA. And this is standard fare. This is standard course. Like, somebody has to lay out for the court, what are the predicate charges? What are the predicate facts that give rise to the charges? I make this affidavit in support of a criminal complaint charging Hannah C. Dugan with obstructing or impeding a proceeding before a department or agency of the United States in violation of, and then it gives the U.S. Code reference. And then the next section is like, so the complaint, the author of the complaint has explained who he or she is and what role they have in this. Then they move on to probable cause. What's the background? I am aware from a review of public records that Eduardo Flores Ruiz was charged in Milwaukee County Circuit Court, case number yada, 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 with 3 counts of battery, domestic abuse infliction of physical pain or injury. Agents from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, yada, 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 identified him as an individual who was not lawfully in the United States. A review of his alien registration file indicates he's a native and citizen of Mexico, and that Flores Ruiz had been issued a certain kind of notice and notice of removal, blah, blah, blah. So he's a guy who's wanted, and he's not here legally. That's essentially what they're saying. Okay. Then further along, the Milwaukee ICE ERO office was aware that on April 18, 2025, he was scheduled to attend a hearing in his criminal case. I am aware, says the FBI agent, that law enforcement routinely execute warrants and make arrests in public areas of buildings such as the Milwaukee courthouse. Again, saying, here's a guy, we want him. The reasons why we want him: he's in the country illegally. He's now been charged with domestic battery. He's got a court date. It's a public setting. We're going to take advantage of that, and we're going to take him into custody. I'll spare some of the additional background, and I'll cut to the chase as I read through this this criminal complaint. Now it gets to a discussion of Judge Dugan and how Judge Dugan learns that there are ICE representatives in her courtroom. Quote, the courtroom deputy reported that the clerk then got up and talked with Judge Dugan. Judge Dugan became visibly angry, commented that the situation was absurd, left the bench, and entered chambers. At the time, Flores Ruiz was seated in the gallery of the courtroom. So the tip staff, the judge's staff, alert the judge who's presiding over this criminal proceeding, nothing to do with immigration, the criminal proceeding of this migrant charged with domestic battery. Now she learns, oh, there are individuals in my courtroom who are from ICE. And there were not only representatives in her courtroom, there were also individuals in the hallway as well. And she becomes, according to the complaint, visibly perturbed about it. And she insists that the whole matter be taken before the president judge, because she wants to know what is the position of the court, meaning the court writ large in Milwaukee, about whether we're going to allow migrants to be taken into custody by ICE in these circumstances. Members of the arrest team, I'm reading again now from the affidavit. Members of the arrest team reported the following events after Judge Dugan learned of their presence and left the bench. Judge Dugan and Judge A, who were both wearing judicial robes, approached members of the arrest team in the public hallway. Judge A's courtroom is located adjacent to Judge Dugan. Witness uniformly reported that Dugan was visibly upset and had a confrontational and angry demeanor. She addressed the deportation officer, asked if the deportation officer was present for a court appearance. The individual responded no. Judge Dugan stated that the deportation officer would need to leave the courthouse. Whoa, wait a minute. Who is she? I say, this is me, not the criminal complaint. Who is she to tell a deportation officer, you must leave this public space? And then further along in the affidavit, this is really the key paragraph. Again, sorry if it sounds disjointed. Oh, and I want to mention that in the newsletter today, in the Smerconish.com daily newsletter, I published the criminal complaint. So you can read it for yourself. You can read. Again, these are the allegations. You know, there will be a defense provided to Judge Dugan, but this is what the feds are saying. Despite having been advised of the administrative warrant for the arrest of Flores Ruiz, Judge Dugan then escorted Flores Ruiz and his counsel out of the courtroom through the jury door, which leads to a non-public area of the courthouse. Okay, you get it? Like there's tumult now, because the feds are here to arrest this guy. This guy is here to respond to a state charge of domestic battery. The judge becomes aware of it. She's angry about it. And now she removes the defendant and his lawyer literally through a side door. These events were so unusual for two reasons. First, the courtroom deputy had previously heard Judge Dugan direct people not to sit in the jury box because it was exclusively for the jury's use. Second, according to the courtroom deputy, only deputies, juries, court staff, and in custody defendants being escorted by deputies used the back jury door. Defense attorneys and defendants who were not in custody never use the jury door. She's literally given this guy the side exit door. Attorney B similarly explained that after returning to the courtroom, Judge Dugan forcefully motioned for Flores Ruiz's attorney and a male she did not know to approach. Flores Ruiz's attorney appeared to be confused by the judge's gesture, but complied with her directive. Judge Dugan commanded Flores Ruiz's attorney and the male to leave through a back door of the courtroom. She's telling them, this is where you need to go. Attorney B then saw Judge Dugan escort Flores Ruiz's attorney and the male through a non-public door near the jury box. Shortly thereafter, she came back to the courtroom and conducted hearings on the morning's docket. The key line that you're hearing and seeing in all the stories about this, Attorney B similarly explained that after returning to the courtroom, Judge Dugan forcefully motioned for Flores Ruiz's attorney and a male she did not know to approach. She then commanded the attorney and the male to leave through the back door. Okay, so what ends up happening is she gives him a pass out the back door, and he gets on an elevator with his lawyer. But now there's another Fed who is on the elevator. When they get down to the lobby, the guy goes out the door and he makes a mad dash. And then the Feds are able to make the apprehension. And that's the reason why highly unusual. I mean, it's highly unusual that a judge would escort essentially a criminal defendant to freedom, which is what she was trying to do. And equally, rare that you would then see a response like this from in this case, Trump administration. That's a long explanation, but I wanted you to hear from the criminal complaint and not just a soundbite. Again, that's the prosecution side. What would the defense of this be? I don't know. I mean, I think it puts Judge Dugan in the position. I don't know how she can deny it because there were so many witnesses. But what is she going to say? Maybe she's going to say, well, I think he was being denied due process. But if he was being denied due process, it's not her position to give him a get out of jail free card. Question: if a state judge helps a migrant evade federal ICE agents, should that judge be arrested and charged with obstruction and concealment? That is as precise and straightforward as I can present it. And if the very early voting is accurate of where it ends up, then it's going to be a relatively close outcome. What do I think? I think I'm going to accept the averments as being true. Okay? I think she made a huge mistake. A mistake for which she goes to jail? No. But there needs to be some level of punishment. There needs to be some level of you can't take away from ICE and those charged with border protection and enforcement. You can't take away the ability to do their job in courthouses. Where does that lead? What other public places? Are we going to say all government property? Well, if it's government property and you've got somebody who's wanted, you're not going to be able to seize them? That doesn't make sense to me. That does not make sense to me. And it's another example. I'll close with this. It's another example of the administration, I think, having one of those 80-20 issues. Here we are on or about the 100th day in office for Donald Trump. He's underwater in all of these polls. The strongest numbers that he has, and according to NBC today, it's at 49%. Still more disapprove than approve of Trump on immigration, but immigration is his strongest issue. And among Republicans, he's got near universal support. It puts Democrats like Chris Von Hollen in the position of having to go to a prison in El Salvador to meet with the migrant from Venezuela and be perceived on his side. It's a losing argument politically for Democrats, is what I continue to believe. But it's a great poll question. It's a great poll question. And Ellie Honig is my guest on radio today to talk about it. So please go vote at Smerconish.com. If a state judge helps a migrant evade federal ICE agents, should that judge be arrested and charged with obstruction and concealment? Thank you, gang. Like and subscribe. Please set yourself up for notifications. Please set yourself up for notifications because I can't always honor the exact timing. And that way you'll know when I'm here if you care to tune in. And I hope you do. We passed 60,000 subscribers recently. And I really appreciate that this has become such a daily gathering spot for so many. One more thing, if I may, on my YouTube page, make sure you check out the commentary that I delivered on CNN on Saturday, another subject I'll discuss on radio today. I'm very proud of that commentary, and it was very difficult to deliver just given the context. You know, the Pope's funeral having just concluded and me wanting to weigh in on the whole Mar and David brouhaha. So, all right. Thank you. Have a good day. See ya.